Okay, so some good news out of Pennsylvania. Um, let's see, the article is titled After Nearly 30 Years, Pennsylvania Will End State Funding for Anti-Abortion Counseling Centers. It's about time. Because I believe they are called pregnancy centers. They're not. Well, they are as long as you aren't looking for all your options, which includes abortion. So, but anyway, the article starts. For nearly 30 years, Democratic and Republican lawmakers in Pennsylvania have approved millions of taxpayer dollars for an anti abortion program. Now, the state's new governor plans to end the contract as the organization that distributes those funds and other groups like it gain attention since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So, I'm going to hopefully guess that the Democrats just were bamboozled into thinking that pregnancy centers were actually legit counseling centers as opposed to anti abortion bullshit. Anyway, moving on. Pennsylvania plans to end on December 23rd its long-standing contract with the nonprofit Real Alternatives, the first organization in the nation to secure significant state and federal subsidies to support anti-abortion counseling centers. Under the program, Real Alternatives distribute the state and federal funds to dozens of Pennsylvania centers, including Catholic charities, anti-abortion counseling centers, and maternity homes, which provide support and housing for pregnant women. So, maybe not pregnancy centers, but still, I can see why Democrats would be totally bamboozled. Well, Catholic charities, I mean, how could you ever imagine that that would be honest about abortion? But okay. But yeah, I'm gonna go with most of the Democratic governors were bamboozled. Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro said in a statement his administration would not continue that pattern of subsidizing the organization, saying he was steadfast in defending abortion access. We will ensure women in this Commonwealth will receive the reproductive health care they deserve, he said. The news shocked Eileen Ardish, the executive director of St. Margaret of Castile Maternity Home, which receives money through Real Alternatives to provide housing, materials, and parenting counseling. While it's not their entire budget, the loss of funding will impact the center's longevity, she said. Now, granted, I'm sure they give good counseling on how to become parents and, providing them with good materials for people who want to continue the pregnancy or, or are excited about the pregnancy, but if you don't help the women who either, you know, can't continue the pregnancy for whatever reason, you know, I'm sure for those women who want to go through the pregnancy and just want to learn how to become good mothers, good parents, I'm sure that they provide good information. It's just that they don't help you if you're in need of ending the pregnancy for whatever reason. Ardish said many pregnant women who come to the maternity home have already made their choices to have the baby, which is fine. Absolutely fine. And if you would give all the information out there, then there would be no problem. But once you decide not to give people all the information, because, all right, they chose to have the baby. That's great. What if it's because they haven't encountered a reason to want to end the pregnancy? you know, many women, I'm sure, would be like, oh yeah, I would never have an abortion under any circumstance. And then a certain circumstance hits, and suddenly their tune changes. So, at what point are we talking about? Are we talking about women who already are aware of a problem and are still willing to go through it? We don't know. Until there's that last penny left, I'm in this for the long haul, she said. And the moms that we help, I can't imagine deserting any of them. Again, I'm sure for a lot of these expectant mothers, they provide great service. I'm not going to say they provide shit service for everybody, but there is that just one point that makes it Pennsylvania was the first state to enact an official abortion alternative program in the mid-90s, helmed by then Governor Bob Casey, an anti-abortion Democrat. Well, there you go. They weren't bamboozled. They just sucked. The state began funding alternatives in tandem with a pre-existing program that subsidized Planned Parenthood services for women's health. The funding for both programs had continued under both Republican and Democratic governors in the years since. Okay, so I'm reading that they funded both the anti-abortion and the pro-choice side. Still not thrilled that they provided funding to the anti-abortion side, but at least they provide funding to both sides. That's at least something. Real Alternatives network of centers has seen about 350,000 women at 1.9 million office visits in Pennsylvania, the organization said in a statement. Last year, Pennsylvania sent about $7 million to the group, which distributed those funds to more than 70 centers. At one point, Real Alternatives was overseeing programs in Indiana and Michigan and inspired other states to find ways to fund organizations like it using taxpayer money. Even as Pennsylvania is poised to stop funding the program, the state's move continues to have an impact nationwide. Michelle Cuppersmith, the executive director for Campaign for Accountability, a watchdog group that has filed complaints against Real Alternatives' use of taxpayer dollars, said Shapiro did the right thing by ending the contract. Now, just as many states unfortunately look to Pennsylvania as a model for letting these programs into their states, we urge other states to follow suit in eliminating the spending that is not just wasteful, but actively harmful to the health of their citizens, she said. Tens of millions of taxpayer dollars across the U.S. have been sent to such organizations, which are typically religiously affiliated. You don't say. Since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the right to abortion last year, Republican-led states have sent more tax dollars to what are sometimes called crisis pregnancy centers. Called it. I just forgot that it had crisis in the name. While Democratic-leaning states apply more scrutiny to them. Alrighty. In Tennessee, which has a near total abortion ban, legislators approved $20 million in funding for a grant program. Republicans said the money would support struggling families because women could tap into the center's parent counseling classes, diaper banks, and other services. Again, I do not deny that they provide appropriate services, that they provide counseling and diaper banks. I don't doubt they don't provide that, but some women don't need that. They need health care, not how to become a parent. It's not going to do you much good if you and or the baby to be are dead. So, yeah. Similarly, Republican Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds proposed doubling the funds for a state program designed to help fund the centers, which launched last year with $500,000 just before Roe was overturned. In Florida, lawmakers upped the amount the centers could seek from $4.5 million to $25 million for the 2023-24 fiscal year. And governors in Arkansas and West Virginia signed off on spending $1 million on the centers over the next fiscal year. Meanwhile, Democratic-led states have tried to thwart the centers, which for years had been accused of providing misleading information about abortion and contraception. For example, suggesting that abortion leads to mental health problems or breast cancer. And that is my problem with those centers. Again, if providing information about how to have a healthy pregnancy, healthy parenthood, healthy baby, fine. I have no problem with that if that's all they did. But they are actively not just ignoring abortion, they're actively lying about abortion because and contraception simply because they do not agree with it. So, as if this is something you can agree to. People don't just decide one day that they want to have an abortion. People use contraception because they're actually doing what these people whine that those women who get abortions do not do, which is go out of their way to prevent a pregnancy. And they're even preventing that. I mean, come on. Pick one. Do you not want people to get pregnant and unwantedly pregnant and then have to consider an abortion because something went wrong and you knew something was going to go wrong and so you didn't want to get pregnant? And then you put them in a position to have an abortion? Or do you want them to not be put in that position at all? You need to pick one. Colorado lawmakers made it a deceptive trade practice for an organization to advertise that they offer abortions or emergency contraceptives when they do not. But a similar law in Illinois was blocked by a federal judge who said it violated the First Amendment. So, yeah, Colorado is just bizarre. But yes, I approve of that because you're preying on people's desperation. And then to say that you provide this care when you don't? Why would you do that? Unless you think, ooh, if I badger them enough, then they won't want either want to get it or it'll be too late for them to get this and I'll have won. Like a fucking cartoon villain. Massachusetts set aside $1 million to launch a public education campaign focused on warning the public of potentially misleading claims from the centers. And in Vermont, pregnancy centers will now be subject to the state's existing consumer protection laws, which prohibits false and deceptive advertising. Yes. Even with the scrutiny, the centers have received strong support from those who benefited from their services. Alyssa McAfee, 26, was one of them. She was homeless, jobless, and in early recovery when she found out she was pregnant. She came to St. Margaret's in Pennsylvania 6 months pregnant and stayed until her daughter was around 5 months old. Everyone was definitely looking at my situation like, you cannot bring a baby into the world right now, but I knew that I wanted to, she said. McAfee said she found the organization to be welcoming. She felt it was for people that had already decided to pursue parenthood. Which, again, if you're in a position where that's an option, great. Since she's left, McAfee has a job and an apartment and even some of the diapers provided by St. Margaret. It turned out to be the biggest blessing life has ever given me, she said. And it's wonderful that it worked out for her. I'm not saying that this is the devil incarnate. Well, maybe a little. But you know what? Places like Planned Parenthood do the same damn thing. The only difference is they don't lie about what an abortion or contraception does. About $8 million in state subsidies hangs in the balance this year as Pennsylvania completes its budget, with the Shapiro administration looking to send the money to other women's health providers. Abortion opponents called Shapiro's decision harmful. That's just rich coming from you. And Republicans said the option of using the money for other anti-abortion programs will have to be part of the continued budget negotiations. No, you guys should not be deciding what healthcare options should be available. It's a healthcare option that should be available to everybody, not just because in this case you think abortions are icky or something. It's sad because this is a great program, and you take this program away, abortions will substantially increase in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Or maybe not. I mean, I'm sure there are some women who got bamboozled into not getting abortions. But that doesn't mean it's going to substantially increase. It just means that they'll get the information, all the information that they could have, and they get to make the decision. It's not for some old white man who probably, would let their mistress get an abortion because God forbid they would be in a compromising position. It's not for you to tell women what they can and cannot do. They should have the proper health care. All right. Oh, actually, this was the president and CEO of Real Alternatives. Yeah, because you don't have a bias at all. Defunding the program was a key budget priority for some Pennsylvania Democrats, and abortion rights groups like Planned Parenthood PA advocates hailed the decision. Concerns over abortion access now outweigh the good intentions centers tend to tout, said Laura Andkowiak, a political science professor at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. It's not so much about the substance of the work anymore, but who they're aligned with and what their position is on abortion that has politicized the center, she said. Yes, because these pregnancy centers should be about health care for the woman, and abortion is health care. So, yeah, it's not like the poor people are being singled out. As I said, I'm sure in many cases they provide good information. But if you don't provide the good information across all options, then you're not providing the proper care for those women. Because they might be in a situation where that should be an option. And it should be up to them to decide whether they want to go through with what option, not for anybody else. In terms of the political context, I think this is part of a much larger phenomenon in which both sides of the abortion debate are battling over which service providers are going to gain access to public funding, she said. Because again, one side provides total medical care options, whereas the other one not only doesn't, but actively lies about certain options because they don't want you to choose that option. This isn't about just ignoring abortion or contraception. This is about outright lying about what it does because you do not want women to choose that option. So, yeah, those centers should not receive public funding. Now, if they don't like abortion, which most pro-choice people do not, they can still get a job somewhere where they can advocate for certain options, as long as you acknowledge that abortion is an option. You can tell them that your reasons for why they shouldn't, but as long as you give them their options and give them truthful information about it, your personal opinion means nothing. And there's a difference between your having a personal opinion about abortion and forcing others to follow that personal opinion. Again, I'm sure that in many cases they provide good care, but they are actively lying about abortion. So how is this on the same level as a pro-choice institution where they give you all the correct information about all your options because they want you to make the right decision for yourself as opposed to the right decision for whomever the carer is, because it is not their decision at the end of the day. It is the woman's decision. So yeah, this isn't poor anti-abortionists are being singled out. They're being singled out because they're not providing proper care. They're not giving you all your options. They're not giving you all your information. If they were to do that, then there would be no problem. But they're not doing that. Not only are they not giving you all your options, they're lying about some of your options because they have an agenda. Whereas the pro-choice community doesn't have an agenda. They want what is best for you. That is the difference. And that is what some people just can't get through their thick skull. That this is not about them. This is about the pregnant person. If that person feels that an abortion is right for them, fine. For whatever reason. If they decide that they maybe should be getting an abortion, but they just can't bring themselves to, that's perfectly valid too. That is up to them. They're the ones who are carrying the fetus. They're the ones who make the decision. I don't know why this is so hard for people to get through their thick skulls. That this is medical care. This is health care. And it's not some schmuck who has no understanding of a person's situation, of the woman's situation. They should not be telling them what they can and cannot do. Because you do not know their life. You do not know what they need as far as medical care. So you shouldn't be telling them what they should do. And I just do not understand why this is so hard. It shouldn't be hard. Either you accept that or you're an ass. Those are your only two options. Anyway, that is the end of that article. So I will see you guys, I think tomorrow, with another article.